Nominal expected rate of return is equal to the dividend divided by the stock price. So for question 1, when we calculate that, we got 9%. The second part of question 1a, it asks for what is the annual rate of return, and that came out to 9.31%. For question 1, part B, it's asking if the nominal required rate of return is 8%, what is the current value per share? So we are looking for present value. So in order to get that, we have to find the required rate of the interest, which is 8%, as well as the payment and the future value, which is also given in the problem. And it came out to 24.38. Question 2. What was the expected rate of return at the beginning of 1992? In order to get the expected rate of return, first you have to take the dividends divided by stock price plus dividend growth rate. So for question 2a, we got 14.9%. Part B. What was the expected dividend yield and capital gains yield in January 1st for 1992? In order to get the expected dividend yield, you have to take the dividend divided by the stock price, which came out to 8.09%. And the second part of the question was what the expected capital gains, which is beginning price minus end, or I say end price minus beginning divided by beginning price. And that came out to 6%. Question 2, part C. Under the growth rate assumption, both the dividend yield and the capital gains yield, according to Investopedia, must grow at a constant rate. So for part D in question 2, it's asking us about the Gordon model and whether people will use it, mainly companies. So for that to be a real assumption, or in order to be used, both dividends and earnings must also grow at a constant rate. Usually more mature companies use it just because there's not as much volatility, but mainly for stocks, there are a lot of the companies, there's so much volatility that sometimes dividends are good, but earnings are not good. So for the most part, it is not really used. For question 3 is asking for the stock price. In order to get the price, we have to take the dividend times the return minus the growth. So for part A, B, and C in question 3, the stock price for A came out to $31.80. For stock B, it came out to $33.71. And for stock C, it came out to $35.73. Now I'm looking at question D. It's asking for the dividend yield, the capital gains yield, and the total return. So to get the dividend yield is the dividends divided by the price. So for that part, we got 5.66%. For the capital gains yield, it is the beginning price minus the end price divided by the beginning. So for that, I got 6%. And the last part to question D on number 3, it's asking for the total return. So you take pretty much the dividend yield plus the capital gain yield, and when we add them together, I got 11.66%. So for question 3, part F, we have to calculate the expected rate of return. We did that by getting the dividends that we calculated earlier in the problem, which is 1.91. Then we divided it by the price of the stock, which is 22.26, which is given to us, minus the growth rate, which is 7.5%, and I got 8.6%. So for part G on question number 3, it's asking for if the growth rate is reasonable. If you look at the value line, the growth rate is reasonable if you're looking only at the dividends, since there is a constant growth in the 10-year period. But when you're looking at the earnings, you could see that it's not at a constant growth. For the first 5 years, it is up, and then the next 5 years, it drops down. And since we said earlier that in order for it to be a growth rate or to be constant, they both must grow at the same time or at the same rate. So for question H, it is asking for the sustainable growth, which is the retention ratio times the return on equity. The return on equity is given to us in the problem, which is 16%. And in order to calculate the retention ratio, you take 1 minus 2.25 divided by 3.30, which is the DPS divided by the EPS, or earnings per share. And I got 0.32. And then I multiply the 0.32 times the 16%, which is given to us, like I mentioned before, and I got 5.09. Now, the second part of that question is asking if it's a sustainable growth, but since it's smaller than the 7.5% that we're comparing it to, I would say that it's not a sustainable growth